The world around me seemed to freeze in time, and then it all shattered. There was no warning, no chance to prepare. One moment, I was driving along the highway, the sound of my tires humming against the road, the soft music playing in the background. The next, everything spun wildly, my vision blurred, and the last thing I remembered before the crash was the sharp, deafening sound of metal crumpling, my body jerking against the seatbelt in a flash of bright light. Um, nothing. I could no longer feel my body. The weight of it, the pain, it had all vanished. I was no longer in the world of the living, but floating somewhere between realms, suspended in a void of silence. Everything around me was dark, yet there was a faint glow on the horizon, like a distant star calling me toward it. It wasn't a light I could see with my eyes, but something deep within me knew it was there. I was terrified at first. The void was unsettling. The absence of everything I knew was suffocating. I wanted to scream, to somehow reach back, but my voice never came. My thoughts were chaotic, and panic gnawed at me like a slow, relentless tide. Was this the end? Was I gone? Then, from the darkness, a presence emerged. It wasn't a physical figure I could touch or even see clearly, but I felt it. The air around me seemed to shift, thick with a kind of warmth, a sense of love and protection. I could feel it enveloping me like a blanket, soothing the raw, frantic energy that had overtaken my mind. A voice, calm and authoritative, reached me. Though no words passed between us, I didn't hear it through my ears. I felt it inside my soul, in the deepest part of me, where truth and understanding reside. I thought at the time, this is Wusu, it's like the Zen master, but just do not be afraid, the voice whispered. Like a soft breeze that caresses the skin, you are not alone. Ah! I felt my fear begin to ebb away, replaced by something I had never known. Peace. It wasn't a temporary peace, not like the fleeting comfort you get after a good night's sleep. This peace was lasting, as though it had always been there, waiting for me to remember it. It was a peace that transcended my earthly concerns, a peace that settled deep into my bones and made the dark void seem far less threatening. Who are you? I finally found the courage to ask, though it felt strange to ask anything, as if the questions themselves were irrelevant in the face of this overwhelming presence. The answer came not in words, but in understanding. The figure before me was not human, yet not entirely other. It was timeless, both ancient and eternal, and yet, somehow, intimately familiar. The entitled and blessed self was, inspiration. "Oh, you know me already," the voice replied. "I am the one who has always been with you, even when you were not aware. I am the one who has been guiding you, loving you. I am the truth you've sought, the peace you've longed for." There was no doubt in my mind now that I was in the presence of something divine, something that existed beyond the confines of time and space. And as I listened, I began to understand. This encounter wasn't just an accident, nor was it a simple brush with death. It was something far more significant. It was an invitation. "You are at the crossroads," the voice continued, "the point between life and death, between the world you know and the truths you have yet to learn. I've brought you here to reveal the path ahead, to show you the choices that will define your future, your soul, your journey." I felt a sudden shift, a stirring in the air, as if the very space around me was alive with energy. There was a sense of urgency, but also of great love, a love that was far beyond anything I had ever experienced on earth. "You will be shown what is coming," the voice said, "but know this. What you see is not the end. It is the beginning of a new understanding. What you choose to do with this knowledge will determine the course of your life and the lives of those around you." The weight of these words settled on me like a heavy cloak. My mind began to race, but something held me back. Something in the presence of this divine figure made me pause. There was no need to rush. I was being led on a journey, one step at a time. Prepare your heart, the voice said softly. What you will witness may not make sense at first, but trust in the truth that lies beneath it. And so I waited. My heart pounded, but this time it wasn't from fear, it was anticipation. Something was about to be revealed, something that would change everything. As the silence deepened, the faint light ahead grew brighter. It pulsed, like a heartbeat of the universe itself. The presence before me didn't speak again, but I knew that soon I would be shown what lay beyond the veil. As the light began to expand before me, something deep within stirred. The figure's voice had quieted, leaving only the stillness. But within that stillness, I felt the weight of a warning. A warning not of immediate danger, but of something far more insidious. A future that would slowly erode the very core of who we are. The air felt thicker now, laden with meaning. What was this path that I was about to witness? What could this journey teach me that I didn't already know? The answers would come, but would I be ready to face them? The light before me grew brighter, pulsating like the rhythm of a heartbeat, pulling me closer. I felt a gentle pull toward it, not physically, but in the deepest part of my being. It was as though the light was calling me to understand, to see the truth I had been blind to for so long. And then, without warning, the world around me shifted. The void I had been floating in faded, and the light grew brighter, more real, until it consumed everything. For a moment, I lost all sense of self, of time, of place. But then the scene began to form before me. As I realized that real life was before me, I shrank. I was standing in the midst of a bustling city, a place that seemed strangely familiar but far too advanced for anything I had seen before. Buildings towered high above me, their sleek, reflective surfaces glistening in the sunlight. Vehicles flew overhead, and people moved in a constant stream, their faces blank, their bodies encased in the latest technological enhancements. The air was filled with a soft hum of activity, calm, almost peaceful. But underneath, I felt an unsettling stillness, a lack of true connection. The people around me seemed to glide through life, their eyes fixated on screens embedded in their hands or directly into their bodies. A strange sense of detachment hung in the air, as if the people were no longer fully present in the world they inhabited. They were distracted, absorbed, disconnected from one another, their every move determined by the pulse of invisible technology. Then I saw it, a symbol. Simple yet powerful, etched into the skin of those around me. It wasn't a physical mark at first, but more like a shimmering tattoo, an insignia of some sort, glowing faintly beneath their skin. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, like an invisible force marking their very being. I felt an icy chill run through me as I realized what it was. It was the mark. The figure next to me, still unseen but felt with every fiber of my being, seemed to anticipate my recognition, like his intense, "Do you see it?" the voice asked, soft yet piercing, like a whisper in the vastness of space. I nodded, my throat tight. "What is it? What does it mean?" "This is the future," the voice said. "This is what is coming, what will be accepted in time. The mark of the beast. It will seem harmless at first, a convenience, a security measure, but its true purpose is far darker." I watched as the people moved through the city, their lives unfolding in a seamless, almost perfect flow. They didn't need to speak to communicate. They merely looked at each other, their thoughts shared, their emotions synced through a network of technology. At first, it seemed like a dream come true. No misunderstandings, no need for words, just pure connection. But there was something wrong about it, something in the way they seemed to drift through life without ever truly living it. I turned to the figure beside me. the warmth of their presence grounding me, even in the midst of these unsettling visions. Why? Why would they choose this? I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of confusion and fear. Because it will promise them everything they think they need, the voice explained. Security, comfort, efficiency. The mark will offer them the illusion of connection, instant access to knowledge, perfect communication, in a world without boundaries. People will be drawn to it by the promise of ease, of an idealized future. But it will come at a price. As the words echoed in my mind, the scene before me shifted again. This time I saw the consequences of accepting the mark. The people once so vibrant became hollow. Their eyes, once full of life, now seemed lifeless. Their faces locked in a perpetual expression of mechanical obedience. Their bodies moved in sync with the technology, but their souls seemed lost, adrift in a sea of empty promises. They will lose their true selves, the voice continued, their connection to God, to each other, to the earth. They will no longer be free. They will be slaves to the very technology they embraced. And as they are absorbed into the system, they will slowly forget who they were, who they are meant to be. I saw families once filled with love, now distant and fragmented. Children born into this world would grow up without understanding the value of real relationships, of real human connection. The parents, too consumed by their own technological dependence, would be unable to guide their children, to teach them the values of faith, love, and community. A deep sadness gripped me as I watched the vision unfold. The world that seemed so perfect, so advanced, was hollow at its core. There was no room for true faith, for love, for personal choice. There was only the pulse of the mark, guiding every movement, every thought. People were no longer individuals, they were cogs in a machine, controlled by a force greater than themselves. How did it happen? I whispered, the question escaping before I could stop it. The voice grew quiet, as though the answer was not easy to give. It will be a gradual process. At first, it will seem like progress. People will welcome the changes, the benefits, the convenience, but soon, the very things they think will make their lives better will become the chains that bind them. The light around me seemed to darken for a moment, as though the weight of what I was seeing was too much to bear. But then it softened, wrapping me in a gentle warmth. But not all will fall for the deception, the voice said with a quiet certainty. There will always be those who remember what is truly important. They will not be swayed by the false promises. They will hold on to their faith, their humanity, and they will be the ones to protect the future. I felt a flicker of hope rise within me, like a small flame in the darkness, but it was quickly smothered by the weight of the reality I had just witnessed. We went back inside, and I apologized. Can anything be done to stop it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. You cannot stop it, not entirely, the voice replied. But you can choose a different path. You can prepare yourself, spiritually and practically. You can build communities of faith, of love, of true connection, and in doing so, you can ensure that your soul remains free, no matter what happens in the world around you. As the words sank in, I realized the magnitude of what I had learned. The mark was not just a physical symbol. It was a symbol of a deeper loss, a loss of what it means to be truly human. And the only way to resist it, to stay free, was to hold tight to faith, to love, and to the values that make us whole. The vision faded, but the weight of its meaning remained. My mind raced with the enormity of what I had just seen. There was no turning back now. The future had been revealed, but it wasn't just a warning. It was a call to action. The mark was coming, but there was still time to prepare, still time to choose a different path. The real question was, could I, and the world around me, rise above the seduction of convenience and reclaim what was truly important before it was too late? As the vision faded, I found myself standing on the edge of a precipice, looking into a future that felt both inevitable and avoidable, depending on the choices that lay ahead. The weight of the knowledge I had been given settled deep in my chest. The mark was not just a symbol. It was a force, an invisible, insidious power that would gradually reshape everything we knew. It's In the quiet space between worlds, the voice spoke again, its tone soft yet filled with a profound sense of urgency. The mark will not come suddenly, it said. It will not appear overnight, nor will it be announced with great fanfare. No, its arrival will be subtle, its acceptance gradual, wrapped in the promises of progress, convenience, and security. People will embrace it, not because they understand its true nature, but because it will appear as the answer to everything they've been longing for. I felt a pang of disbelief. Surely, I thought, no one could be so blind. No one would accept something that would so clearly destroy the core of their humanity. But as the figure spoke, I began to see the truth of it, unfolding before my eyes like a tapestry of deception, woven with threads of seemingly harmless intentions. The mark will begin as an upgrade, the voice continued. A simple convenience. At first, it will be a digital wallet, a seamless way to manage payments, access personal information, or communicate without barriers. It will promise safety, security from theft, fraud, and danger. People will be drawn to it because it will make their lives easier, more efficient. Who wouldn't want that? The scene shifted again, and I saw the first wave of people, eager, excited, and completely unaware of what they were getting into. The first users of the mark were not pushed into it by force, but invited to it, seduced by its allure. It was nothing more than a small chip embedded in the skin, almost invisible, a mark that could carry all their personal data. Transactions could be made with a mere touch, and communication could flow effortlessly. It was the perfect solution to the everyday frustrations of life. Families embraced it, teachers, doctors, business leaders. Everyone saw the convenience, the beauty of a world without cash, without passwords, without barriers. The mark offered them more than just a tool, it offered them peace of mind. The deception, the voice whispered, is in the ease with which they will accept it. At first, it will be sold as a luxury, something that makes life simpler, easier, more organized. Who would say no to that? But over time, as more people adopt it, it will become necessary. People will start to rely on it for everything: work, education, health, even relationships. Soon, not having the mark will be like not having a smartphone in the world today. It will be unthinkable. I saw how slowly, imperceptibly, the world changed. At first, it was just a few people adopting the mark. But as it spread, more and more individuals, institutions, and governments began to integrate it into daily life. Employers began to offer incentives for those who had the mark, and jobs began to require it for access. Schools made it a prerequisite for attendance, while healthcare providers demanded it for insurance and medical records. It wasn't long before those without the mark were sidelined, seen as outdated, incapable of participating fully in society. What began as an upgrade became a necessity, and soon it became impossible to live without it. But even as the mark became ubiquitous, a deeper darkness began to emerge. The mark will not simply track your data, the voice warned. It will connect you to a global network, one that is not controlled by the people, but by those who control the technology. It will know everything about you, your habits, your desires, your fears. It will predict your needs before you even know them. And through this, it will shape you, subtly bending your will, directing your thoughts, and eventually controlling your heart. I watched as the subtle changes unfolded. People who had once been vibrant, independent, and full of life began to lose something essential. They were still alive, but their lives were no longer their own. Their actions were governed by algorithms, their decisions influenced by the network to which they were now tethered. And the mark, I realized, was not just a tool, it was a leash, one that pulled tighter with every passing day, one that became invisible to the wearer. People didn't even realize that they were being changed. They still thought they had control over their lives, over their choices, but the mark had already started to shape their desires, their needs, their very essence. And then came the moment of greatest deception. People will think they are still free, the voice said. They will think that they are choosing the mark, choosing to be part of a better future. But in truth, they will have already given up their freedom. They will be slaves to the system, locked in a world where their every need is met, but at the cost of their humanity. I saw it clearly now. The mark would not force people to give up their faith. It would erode it piece by piece until it no longer seemed necessary. People would no longer need to pray. The system would give them everything they needed. Their spiritual hunger would be replaced with an insatiable desire for more technology, more perfection. And yet, there would still be those who resisted. There would still be those who remembered that true peace could not come from a device, that true freedom could not be found in a network. These individuals would be tested in ways they could not yet imagine. The voice grew softer, but there was an undeniable urgency behind its words. Your faith will be your greatest weapon against this deception. The mark will test your beliefs, your values, and your sense of purpose. It will tempt you to rely on the system instead of on God, on technology instead of on the love of those around you. It will promise everything, but it will deliver nothing. I felt the weight of these words as they settled in my heart. The battle ahead was not going to be fought with weapons or force. It will be fought with faith, with love, and with the quiet strength of those who would not be swayed by the promises of an easy life. It will be a battle for the soul. The light around me shifted again, and I found myself facing an uncertain future. The world was moving toward the acceptance of the mark, and I was left with one question. Could I, and others like me, stand firm in the face of such overwhelming deception? The choices we made in the coming days would define us, and the tests ahead would push our faith to its limits. But what would we do when the system's promises began to appear irresistible? Would we hold fast to our truth, or would we be seduced by the comfort of a world that demanded everything from us in exchange for nothing real? As the last of the visions dissolved, the quiet settled back into the space where the divine figure and I stood. The stillness was no longer unsettling, but calming, as if I had been immersed in a deep, unspoken truth. The weight of the information I had received was heavy, but not crushing. It was a burden that demanded action, not in frantic haste, but in measured, thoughtful preparation. The voice spoke once more, its tone gentle but resolute. You now understand what is coming, it said. You have seen the dangers of the mark and the slow erosion of faith it will cause. But knowing the truth is not enough. Action is required, both within yourself and in the world around you. I stood still, absorbing these words, realizing their depth. It wasn't enough to simply acknowledge the threat. I had to prepare for it, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The world, it seemed, would not wait for those who were unready. Spiritual growth will be your first and most important preparation, the voice continued. You must deepen your connection with the divine. Only through a strong, unwavering faith can you hope to withstand the trials ahead. Your relationship with God will be your refuge, your strength, and your compass in a world that will grow increasingly uncertain and hostile. I felt a stirring inside me, a hunger for something deeper, something more lasting. The truth of these words resonated through every part of me. In the days ahead, I knew I would have to seek a deeper connection with the divine, a connection that would withstand every temptation and every trial. But how? The voice seemed to answer before I could ask the question. Begin with prayer and reflection, it said softly. Cultivate stillness in your heart. In the chaos that is coming, the stillness will be your strength. Pray not only for yourself, but for those around you, for the strength to remain faithful and the wisdom to discern the path ahead. Let your faith be your anchor. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of this advice settle over me. Prayer was not just a ritual or an obligation. It was the lifeblood of the soul, the thread that would keep me grounded when everything else seemed to fall apart. I understood now that this journey would not be easy. It would be long, and at times it would feel like walking through darkness. But if I nurtured my faith, it would be enough to guide me through. The vision shifted again, and I saw people, communities, gathering together, standing strong in the face of adversity. The divine figure spoke once more. Building strong communities will be the second pillar of your preparation, it said. You will not walk this path alone. As the world grows more isolated, more individualistic, you must seek to build connections with others who share your faith and your values. It is in community that you will find strength, support, and protection. I saw the faces of men and women, young and old, coming together in small groups, seeking each other out in times of trouble. These communities were not defined by wealth or status, but by a shared sense of purpose and a collective commitment to live according to spiritual truths. They were places of safety, of sanctuary, in a world that had become cold and indifferent. The voice emphasized the importance of these communities. Your faith will be tested, but together you will be stronger. The mark will divide the world, but those who remain true to their beliefs will find solace in each other. Help each other grow spiritually, emotionally, and practically. When the trials come, and they will, you will find comfort in knowing you are not alone. I felt a sense of clarity. Community was not just a support network. It was a form of spiritual armor. In a world that would soon be driven by convenience, technology, and the pursuit of self-interest, these small, tight-knit groups would stand as beacons of light, reminding one another of what truly mattered. How could I be part of such a community? How could I help build it? The voice, once again, seemed to know my thoughts. Start with those around you, it instructed, those closest to you, your family, your friends, your neighbors. Share the truth you have learned, but do so with humility and love. People will be afraid, confused, and resistant to the reality you see, but it is not in force or in condemnation that you will bring others to the truth. It is in patience, in understanding, and in love. I understood now. It wasn't about making grand speeches or trying to change the world all at once. It was about planting seeds, small acts of kindness, and offering support to those who were struggling to understand. It was about being the example, showing others that faith, community, and preparedness were not just ideas, they were lifelines. But there was one more piece to this puzzle, something the divine figure had hinted at, but not fully revealed. The voice said, its tone growing more serious. A voice said, a faith and community will be the foundation, but you must also prepare yourself physically and materially for the challenges that lie ahead. The mark will erode not only the spiritual, but the physical world. There will be disruptions, food shortages, economic instability, and a breakdown in the social order. You must be ready for these changes. I saw in a flash images of a world in turmoil, families standing in long lines for food, unable to secure the basics, communities fractured, unable to find common ground. Fear spread like a shadow, darkening every interaction. But in the midst of the chaos, I saw those who had prepared, those who had taken the time to build resilience in themselves and their communities. They had supplies, they had knowledge, and they had each other. They were ready. You must learn the skills that will allow you to survive and thrive in the new world, the voice continued. Gardening, carpentry, basic medicine, self-sufficiency. These will be as valuable as gold. You must also learn to trust your instincts, to work with your hands, to live in harmony with the world around you. I felt a sense of purpose rise within me. I could no longer remain passive, hoping that the world would change for the better. I had to take responsibility, not just for my own life, but for the lives of those I could help. I knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be moments of fear, of doubt, and of struggle. But with faith, community, and practical preparation, we could endure. Together, we could create a future that remained true to our spiritual roots, even as the world around us became increasingly disconnected from them. The voice spoke its final words before the vision began to fade. Share these lessons with others, for the time is short. Strengthen your faith, build your community, and prepare yourselves in every way you can. The world is changing, but you can still shape the future by how you live today. As the divine figure's presence began to fade, I was left with a quiet sense of resolve and a daunting question. How could I start? Where could I find the first step toward building a life grounded in faith, love, and practical preparation? The challenge seemed monumental, but I knew now that it was the only path forward. The future was not something to fear, but something to prepare for, one day at a time. The visions had stopped, the revelations had been spoken, and yet I stood there, caught between two worlds, one fading in the distance and the other rushing toward me with the urgency of time itself. The divine figure, its presence now softer, yet somehow more profound, looked at me with infinite compassion, its gaze filled with both understanding and resolve. Now, I had learned so much about the dangers of the coming technological age, the subtle allure of the mark of the beast, and the necessity of faith, community, and practical preparedness. My heart felt full of knowledge, but the weight of it was almost overwhelming. I wanted to return, to make a difference, but how could I possibly live up to the responsibility of the message I had been given? How could anyone? The divine figure seemed to read my thoughts, and I felt a deep, almost sacred calm spread through me, wrapping around my heart like a blanket of reassurance. Do not fear, the voice said gently, for while the world will indeed grow darker, there is always the possibility of light. As long as there are hearts open to faith, as long as there are hands ready to help, there is hope. There will always be the chance for revival and salvation, but it begins with you and with those who hear your message. I stood still, feeling the weight of these words settle deep within me. Revival, salvation. I had thought these were things of distant prophecy, unreachable and beyond our grasp. But the divine figure had just shown me that it was not too late, not for the world and not for me. Even as the forces of darkness grew stronger, there was always the possibility of redemption, of a new beginning. Hope does not lie in what is seen, the voice continued, but in what is unseen. Faith is the lens through which you will see beyond the darkness. It is not easy, and it will not always feel comforting, but it is the only path forward. Those who walk in the light of truth will be the ones who shine when the world is at its lowest. I felt my chest tighten, as though something within me was beginning to break open, something that had been dormant for far too long. I had always believed in the possibility of a better world, but now I realized that it was not something that would come to us. It was something we had to create, step by step, choice by choice. The seeds of that change had to be planted today, in every small act of faith, in every moment of standing firm against the tide of false promises. You must share what you have learned, the voice urged. The world will try to pull you away from the path of truth, and many will choose the easier way, the way that promises comfort and security. But you must not waver. Let your life be a testament to what is possible when one remains faithful, when one chooses to walk in the light of divine love. Even when the world is dark, a sudden thought stirred within me. How could I share this message? How could I possibly make others understand? The task ahead seemed daunting, almost impossible. But in that moment, I remembered the communities I had seen, the small groups of faithful, strong, and supportive souls gathering together in defiance of the chaos around them. It wasn't about changing the whole world in one day. It was about doing what I could, where I was, with the resources I had. You are not alone, the divine figure reassured me, as if reading my mind once again. The ones you reach, the ones you touch, will be the ones who carry the flame forward. You are but one light in a sea of darkness, but every light counts. You will not be without support, for I am with you always, and so are those who share this mission with you. Together, you will overcome what is to come. I felt a deep sense of peace, like a wellspring of hope had been ignited within me. The road ahead would not be easy, and the world would indeed grow more difficult, but I understood now that my faith, my community, and my preparation were not just about surviving, they were about thriving in the midst of struggle. They were about holding on to the light even when it seemed like the darkness would swallow it whole. The divine figure's presence seemed to grow fainter, its form becoming more and more like light itself, slowly dissipating into the surrounding ether. But before it vanished entirely, it spoke once more. Oh. Right, remember, it is not the absence of darkness that matters, but the presence of light. You will face times when it will seem as though all hope is lost, but it is in these moments that your faith will shine the brightest. Let your life be a reflection of the hope you carry within you. There is always the possibility of revival. There is always the chance for salvation. Speaking of Labay Sank, Yachu Funny. The final words hung in the air, and then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the divine figure was gone. But it left something behind, a certainty, a knowing that I would carry with me for the rest of my life. The message was not one of hopelessness or despair, but of perseverance and renewal. In the quiet that followed, I felt myself gently drawn back to my body, back to the world, back to life. But I was different now, changed, transformed. I returned with a mission, a purpose, and a heart full of faith. I knew what I had to do. I knew that no matter how dark the world might grow, I would stand firm, grounded in the light of divine love and truth. I opened my eyes, feeling the breath return to my lungs. My heart began to beat again. The world outside was the same, but I was not. I had been given the gift of understanding, and with it, the responsibility to act. So I stood up slowly, the weight of the experience still pressing against me, but no longer as a burden. I had been given a glimpse of what was to come, not just the dangers, but the hope that would endure. And with that, I was ready to face the world with the strength of my faith, the power of community, and the knowledge that no matter what lay ahead, revival was always possible. And so I stepped forward, knowing that the mission was only beginning.